Rome's first total war. How they destroyed Europe's biggest city. Picture this. It's 400 BCE, and Rome is still just one of many Italian city-states, constantly getting beaten up by bigger, stronger neighbors. Then they do something that changes the ancient world forever. They completely annihilate a city, so massive it makes Rome look like a village. This isn't the famous destruction of Carthage. This is the story of Veii, Europe's largest metropolis at the time, and how Rome learned to wage total war. When David met Goliath, and Goliath was winning, imagine living next door to someone who's 3 times your size, has more money, better weapons, and keeps stealing your stuff. That was Rome's relationship with Veii. Veii was absolutely massive, 350,000 people living in an Etruscan megacity just 10 miles from Rome. To put that in perspective, Rome at the time was maybe 100,000 people on a good day. Veii controlled the profitable Salt Road, dominated river crossings, and had been the regional superpower for centuries. From the very beginning, when Romulus supposedly founded Rome, these two cities were destined to fight. They competed for everything: trade routes, river access, fertile farmland. It was like having 2 rival gangs controlling the same neighborhood, except one gang had tanks and the other had baseball bats. Round 1. The Exiled King's Revenge. The first major war started when Rome kicked out their last king, Tarquin the Proud, in 510 BCE. Tarquin wasn't going down without a fight. He convinced Veii and other Etruscan cities to help him get his throne back. The result? 10 years of brutal warfare that nearly destroyed the young Roman Republic. Veii and his allies captured Roman territory across the Tiber River and came close to wiping Rome off the map entirely. Rome barely survived, and when they finally reclaimed their lost lands, they were so exhausted they agreed to a 40-year truce. They couldn't afford to keep fighting someone that much stronger. Round 2. The strategic city that changed everything. 20 years later, the city of Fidenae, strategically located just 4.5 miles from Rome, decided to switch sides from Rome to Veii. This wasn't just any city. It controlled a crucial river crossing and sat right on the main trade route. When the people of Fidenae murdered 4 Roman ambassadors and asked Veii's King Lars Tolumnius for protection, they basically declared war on Rome. This time, the war lasted 12 years with devastating battles on both sides. Rome finally won, but their solution was terrifying in its completeness. They didn't just conquer Fidenae, they erased it. Every building destroyed, every citizen sold into slavery. The city itself ceased to exist. It was Rome's first experiment in total warfare, and they liked the results. Round 3. The 10-year siege that shook the world. The final war began in 405 BCE when Rome basically walked up to Veii and demanded money for past damages. When Veii told them to get lost, Rome declared war again. But this time was different. Rome wasn't fighting for survival anymore, they were fighting for dominance. The siege that followed was unlike anything the ancient world had seen. Rome surrounded Veii with a double ring of fortifications, essentially building their own city around the enemy city. For 10 years, Roman legions maintained this massive siege operation. Think about the logistics, keeping tens of thousands of soldiers fed, armed, and motivated for a decade of continuous warfare. It was the ancient equivalent of the Manhattan Project, a national effort that consumed enormous resources and required revolutionary military innovation. When Rome's patience ran out, after 10 years of siege warfare, repeated defeats, and massive casualties, Rome was getting desperate. They elected Marcus Furius Camillus as dictator, basically giving one man absolute power to win the war. Camillus was brutal even by Roman standards. First, he executed every soldier who'd fled from battle. Then, he conducted a harsh new military draft with death penalties for draft dodgers. He called in allied troops from across central Italy. But his masterstroke was psychological. Instead of attacking Veii directly, he first destroyed Veii's allies, the Faliscans, and Capanates, cutting off any hope of relief, the engineering marvel that ended everything. When Camillus finally focused on Veii itself, he employed a tactic that would become legendary. He ordered his engineers to dig a tunnel under the city walls. For months, Roman soldiers worked in 6 shifts around the clock, digging through solid rock. When the tunnel was complete, Camillus launched a coordinated attack. Roman legions assaulted the walls from every direction while an elite unit emerged inside the city through the tunnel. Veii never had a chance. Caught between enemies outside and inside their walls, the city fell in a single day. Total war, total victory. What happened next established Rome's reputation for ruthlessness. They enslaved the entire surviving population, hundreds of thousands of people. Rome couldn't use that many slaves, so most were sold to Carthaginian and Sicilian slave traders. The city itself was systematically demolished. Buildings torn down, walls destroyed, the very ground plowed with salt so nothing would grow there again. Rome annexed over 500 square kilometers of Veii's territory and absorbed the lands of its defeated allies. Camillus celebrated the first triumph over an equal opponent in Roman history. The birth of an empire. The destruction of Veii was a turning point that echoes through history. Rome had learned that total war, the complete annihilation of enemies, was not only possible but incredibly effective. This wasn't just conquest, it was the systematic elimination of competition. Veii had been Europe's largest city, and Rome erased it from existence so thoroughly that it became a ghost story. The psychological impact across Italy was enormous. If Rome could destroy a city that powerful, what chance did smaller cities have? Many Italian communities started making alliances with Rome rather than risk the same fate. The long shadow of victory. Veii remained ruins for over 300 years until Augustus rebuilt it as a Roman colony. But by then, Rome had used the lessons learned at Veii to conquer the Mediterranean world. The same tactics that destroyed Veii would later devastate Carthage, Jerusalem, and countless other cities that dared challenge Roman power. Rome had discovered the formula for empire: overwhelming force, total destruction of resistance, and the systematic elimination of rivals. What started as a neighborhood rivalry between two Italian cities became the template for how superpowers wage war to this day. The question that haunts history: was this ruthless efficiency the key to Rome's greatness, or the beginning of something darker? What do you think was total war Rome's greatest strength or its greatest moral failing? Let me know in the comments.